Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here with another video in our series of upgrade and commander builds. Today we're going to be looking at the Tier 9 Premium Destroyer, the Friesland. This is a video that I'm recording as of update 0.10.5. This ship will be removed from availability of purchase, I need to say, starting as update 0.10.6. You can get her right now, for the timing of this video, for 1 million free XP or something like over $70 US in the premium shop. So, the Friesland. So, as traditional, let's just first look at what type of destroyer the Friesland is. For those of you who are already aware of the Friesland and the ship capabilities and specifications, when we talk about destroyers, there's generally 3 categories of destroyers. You have torpedo destroyer, you have a hybrid, and you have a gunboat destroyer. Hybrid being a mix of both a torpedo and gunboat. Well, for Friesland, it's pretty straightforward. She's just simply a gunboat destroyer. That is because she does not have any torpedo armament. Her main investment is in her 2 main batteries, as well as her AA. As you can kind of see, we've got a lot of action going on across the ship in regards to some deadly AA for this Tier 9 destroyer. So, and just briefly looking at the layout for the armor, it's pretty straightforward, as is for most destroyers. We're dealing with a mix of 19mm thickness on the side plating, the fore-end plating, and then we get this mix of the 13mm plating across the superstructure of the ship. So that's pretty straightforward there. There's nothing really going on, typical of any destroyer, but I like to show the armor layout when I'm talking about ships. So let's get to it. So let's go ahead and start looking at the upgrades. We'll talk a little bit more about the peculiarities of the Friesland as we go along. As far as modules, there are no additional modules. Once you get the Friesland, you buy what you get. There's no further upgrades. So that's nice that you don't have to grind anything for, as this is pretty traditional for most premium ships. Looking at upgrades, so we have 6 slots here. So for the first slot, there can be a few things we can look at here, or namely 2. It depends on the type of build you want to do. Since Friesland is a gunboat, and she also has fantastic AA, I like to, for now, my preference is usually always going with the main armaments modification 1, because it reduces the risk of your main battery becoming incapacitated by -20%. Your survivability of your main battery is improved by +50%, and your main battery repair time is reduced by -20% if your main battery should become knocked out. The thing is touchy with the Friesland is that you have 2 turrets. One's located on the bow and one on the stern. If one of those turrets gets knocked out, your damage output is immediately reduced by 50%. And it's likely that it's your front turret that's going to be more knocked out versus your rear turret. So then you're kind of in a difficult position, which either you have to turn kite away, stop, smoke up, if your repair party, damage control party is on cooldown, as an example. So I like to keep the main battery going because that is the strength of the Friesland. When you look at her, with the upgrades that I have right now, when you look at her artillery, the reload time of those 2 turrets is 1.6 seconds, so quite fast. You do have the auxiliary armaments modification 1, so this would just basically be for your AA mount survivability, which is pretty potent on the Friesland. You can see our continuous damage is 328, damage by shell explosions is 1911. I might actually have some signals mounted, to be honest. Yeah, so we have the November Echo set 7 flag mounted. If I take that off, then you see it drops down to 313, 1820. And there's also builds, I think there's some commander skills you can use for AA. Yeah, we'll talk about that momentarily. But for now, we're going to keep looking at the upgrades. So, I mean, it makes more sense to go with main armaments modification 1, in my opinion, over the auxiliary armaments, because you're only getting the AA survivability out of it. You're small, you're nimble, you tend to have relatively good maneuverability in a destroyer. So your AA to be knocked out usually isn't that big of a threat unless a enemy CV just has a hard-on for you, but shouldn't, because you're technically an AA destroyer. You have several options for slot 2. Something that new as of update 10.5 is they've added in like these. They show you other options you can buy in the armory, so I don't have to take you guys to the armory every single time. It's already here, which is actually quite nice. There's 2 standard ones. Has always been the damage control system modification 1, engine room protection, which I always take on my destroyers. But in this instance, we have hydroacoustic search on the Friesland. And so what this does is that it extends the action time of the consumable. So our action time of the hydroacoustic search is 120 seconds. Previously, it would have been 100 seconds, so a minute 40 seconds, but now we get 2 minutes out of it. And this hydroacoustic search is really nice because, 1, the detection of torpedoes is 3.5 kilometers away, and it also detects enemy ships 5 kilometers away. So, I mean, Friesland has a really strong role in taking on enemy destroyers. So if an enemy destroyer, for example, smokes up on you, they're under smoke screen, but you have a 5 kilometer hydroacoustic search, and you can just spot them even though they're under smoke screen and take them out. That's an added benefit, especially getting those additional 20 seconds, in my opinion. So I tend to take the hydroacoustic search modification 1. You do also have the defensive AA fire modification 1, which the action time of consumable is improved by 20 seconds, or 20%, sorry. So the action time right now is 40 seconds, still plus 20%. You're gonna add just several more seconds on. Nothing too crazy there. I think it'd be 40 to 48 seconds if my thinking is correct mathematically. And then your consumable reload time drops by negative 10%. So right now, the reload time is 76 seconds, still takes 7.6 seconds off. So 69 seconds, roughly, you're back up with your defensive AA. So I just recommend going for the hydroacoustic search because you can have some games where you don't actually have enemy carriers, so you'll always get a benefit out of this regardless. For slot 3, you have a few options here as well. You have the main battery modification, which just improves the main battery traverse speed by plus 15%. When you look at the main battery, we can see our 180-degree turn time is 8.3 seconds. So in my mind, it's actually pretty good, so it's no need to really take that. You'll take it more on cruisers and battleships as an example. You have a further AA option for your upgrade, AA Guns Modification 1. What this does is that improves the AA efficiency, so your priority AA sector preparation time is reduced by negative 20%. So, for example, if there's multiple carrier attacking you repeatedly, just having being able to prioritize your AA sector sooner again, it's nice, but again, you don't always necessarily have carriers in games. The third option down the list, you can see that I have mounted, is the Aiming Systems Modification 1. What this does is that, I'll just word what it does actually help here. Increases the firing accuracy of your main battery, and that's it. Because you don't have torpedo tubes, you don't have secondaries. This is just basically just for your main battery. And what it does with your main battery is the dispersion of your main battery shells is reduced by negative 7%. So you don't get as much benefit from this upgrade as you would with a destroyer that does have torpedoes, which right now is every other destroyer in the game except the Druid, which is being tested right now. But I like having tight dispersion on my main battery shells when I'm taking on enemy destroyers, knife fighting with them, or having that tighter dispersion at range if I'm firing at battleships, cruisers. If you saw yesterday's video, which I'll throw in the description of the link, you got to see this build in action. So you have that. Now, the other one you actually have, which is kind of fun, I do see players take this, is the Smoke Generator Modification 1. So what this does, you purchase it in the armory. It's 17,000 if you don't have a coupon. If you do have a coupon, it's 12,500, I believe. And if you're curious, I'll just go ahead and show you where you will find that at. So what the skill does, the smoke generator skill, is that it increases the action time. So your action time right now for the smoke generator is 30 seconds, like the American destroyers. But what it does is it'll take your action time from 30 seconds to 39 seconds. So you're even longer going with the smoke generator modification 1. Okay, so 17. Where is it actually show the price? Yeah, so 17,000 coal, coupon 12,750 coal, which I just bought the Marcel, so I don't have much coal at the moment. So yeah, so you go from a 30-second action time of the smoke to 39 seconds. It's the plus 30%. But your smoke screen dispersion time gets nerfed minus 5%. So what that does is that right now the smoke screen dispersion time of the Friesland is 127 point something seconds. Yeah, it's 127 seconds. So basically you drop down to 120 seconds, which is the standard smoke screen dispersion time of American destroyers, as an example. So it's not... I think it's a good trade-off. They kind of did have to give that upgrade consumable somewhat of a nerf. Imagine laying down a smoke screen that's 39 seconds. That's how long the action time of the consumable is. Now, that doesn't even take into account if you took some commander upgrade builds or commander skills where all of a sudden, instead of a 39-second smoke screen, you have a like 32.9 second smoke screen dispersion time. Oh yeah, it's not 32, 42.9 second smoke screen dispersion time. So you can lay down some really long smokes if that's your role. So you can use that, and but you might find that in a more of a competitive, like maybe this is actually a skill that's more useful in clan battles. Something along those lines, because this is a bit more of a team-oriented skill, where this is more playing for yourself upgrade. So these are both really good options. For myself right now, I do like having the 127-second smoke screen dispersion time, and I like having the tighter dispersion of my main battery shells. That's interesting. So you have 3 options for slot 4. You have damage control system modification 2. You really want to take that for battleships and cruisers. Not going to get into that here. You have 2 options. The propulsion modification 1. So time taken to reach full engine power when accelerating is reduced by negative 50%. And you have steering gears modification 1. So rudder shift time is reduced by negative 20%. So when we look at maneuverability, shall we? You can see the rudder shift time with taking this skill right now is 3.2 seconds. Now, when I demount it, because I was testing this upgrade out to see if I liked it or not, I go from 3.2 seconds to 4 seconds. So it's not a crazy big difference. I mean, to a certain extent, it's nice. This was a build, I think, by Notzer. I was looking at playing around with, because typically I always take propulsion modification. I like to be able to accelerate quickly. For example, if you're juking incoming fire, so on and so forth. So I kind of forgot I was actually testing out the steering gears modification 1. Myself, in this situation, am a fan of the propulsion modification when it comes to the Friesland. I mean, anything you can do to shorten your rudder shift time is really nice. But, you know, for example, you're seeing a smoke screen and torpedoes are incoming, just being able to use propulsion, get out of the way, being able to juke incoming fire is nice. If you've got a standstill or going slow and then accelerating. I like this skill. I do like to take this. I mean, when you have, I guess the last thing I want to say on this skill, you know, with British destroyers, they tend to have really good rudder shift time, so that could be something you could play around with there. So neither skill is bad. It's just more of a, or necessarily one's better than the other. It just depends on your personal taste. My personal taste after testing out steering gears modification 1 is that I like the propulsion modification 1 a bit better. For slot 5, you have 4 options. You have concealment system modification 1, which you can see that's what I've mounted. I do have concealment expert on my commander, but you can see right now that the concealment is 6.4 kilometers for the Friesland. So for myself, I like this skill. It helps you to get in closer to fight with enemy destroyers, and having that advantage, being able to utilize your hydroacoustic search when enemy destroyers under smoke screen. These things allow you to get in closer to engage the enemy. Myself, I like this because, you know, also, you know, it's reducing your detectability range by air by 10%, by squadron detectability range. And then dispersion of shells fired by enemies attacking your ship is increased by plus 5%. You can see that detectability range by air is 2.3 kilometers. So quite nifty. You could potentially make an argument if you wanted to be super maneuverable. You could take steering gears modification 2, but that's going to come at expense of your concealment, where you're going to be something up around 7.2, 7.1 detection range concealment. If you still have concealment expert on your commander, which I do, that's what you'd be looking at. But your rudder shift time would be further reduced, making you very agile. But myself, I prefer the concealment system modification 1. I don't really bug with torpedo lookout system because you already have the hydroacoustic search, and if you're being mindful, you're not sitting broadside in a smoke screen when you know there's an enemy destroyer lurking outside of it. You're more bow, stern, in angled, so you can avoid any possible incoming torpedoes. You also have ship consumables. The action time of the ship's consumables is improved by 10%, but if you really want this skill, you can take a commander's skill. Because I think the concealment system is just way better when you're comparing it to several other of the options here. For the 6th slot, you have 3 options. You have main battery modification 3, which you see I have taken. What this does is it reduces the reload time of your main battery guns. So this drops us to that 1.6 seconds that you saw on the reload time of these 2 120 millimeter guns. But it comes at the expense of your main battery traverse speed being slowed down, reduced to 13 seconds, which you also see 180-degree turn time is 8.3 seconds. So it doesn't bother me as long as I know where the enemy destroyers are at. I just keep my guns in that general direction. The one thing with the Friesland that's really nice is that both of these turrets rotate 360 degrees. Yes, because you can kind of see how it swoops. No. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe it's only the rear turret. This rear turret can rotate 360 degrees. That's really nice. The front turret, I don't actually... No, there's no way. Because of how long that is. You'd be hitting here, right? Oh, I'm not actually sure if the front turret can rotate 360 degrees or not. Yeah, I can look. But if you know, you can throw it in the comments. Because it's kind of tricky when you're looking at this. I don't remember. Because you have... It doesn't look possible. It looks like maybe just the rear turret rotates 360, because look how much more space the rear turret has to turn than the front turret. So I'm just going to say only the rear turret can rotate 360 degrees, but the front turret can't. But if I'm wrong, please say so in the comments. Yeah, so that helps with at least the rear turret being able to rotate 360 degrees. It just helps versus your turret having to rotate a full opposite direction to go all the way around, like other ships tend to have. You also have gunfire control system modification 2. This is a possibility that you could very easily take. What this does is that it extends the firing range of your main battery. So main battery firing range is improved by plus 16%. I do see players take this skill. You can see right now that our main battery firing range is 12.4 kilometers. So if I look at the mathematical equation of 12.4 times 0.16%, so basically you're adding 2 kilometers on your main battery firing range. So then you are reaching 14.4 kilometers with your main battery firing range. And to a certain extent, that's nice. I would say that that's something worth checking out. However, when these type of skills, what I kind of don't like about them sometimes, especially on destroyers, is that it causes sometimes destroyer players to play further in the mid to back, when ideally you should be playing mid to front, because you need to be screening, you need to be spotting, taking on enemy destroyers. But this skill can come in handy. Let's say you've taken out the enemy destroyers, and now you have a battleship that's running away, cruiser, something at range. You're trying to stay in behind this island, and the enemy ships are far away. But this skill you can hit them, but without it you can't. I tend to favor personally my DPM, so anything I can do to get the reload time down, in my mind, is what I'm going to go for, since this shaves 12 seconds off, or 12% off the reload time. So that basically, I think without that, you're looking at over 1.7 seconds, 1.8 seconds, roughly. I didn't check that just before going in. So yeah, so that is what you have as far as upgrades are concerned. We've discussed the consumables a little bit. It's nice having the defensive AA as well. So it makes you a threat and buffing up your AA defense. As far as the commander skills go, right now I only have a 10-point commander on the Friesland. In yesterday's video, there was only a 6-point commander that I had. But this is for 10 point, this is your bread and butter build. Going preventive maintenance, last stand, survivability expert. So get your survivability up. You can see it's up to 20,750. And your concealment down, which you can see is 6.4 kilometers. So this is your bread and butter build for 99% of all your destroyers. The only thing that might differ on other destroyers is, for example, if you're more of a gunboat destroyer, and it's better to not take this and invest your skills more into the main guns, as an example. But most all destroyers, this is your 10-point bread and butter build. Now, when it comes to where I intend to go from here, I've done some research, I've done some looking, and I lean towards, after this, taking the Adrenaline Rush. So this, what this does is it enhances the ship parameters for each 1% of HP lost. So your main battery reload time is going to be reduced by negative 0.2%, and your continuous AA damage is going to be buffed by plus 0.2% as your health pool drops. So this makes you definitely more of a threat as you go down in health, and giving you a bit of a competitive edge. Example, if you're going up against some enemy destroyers after you've lost a bit of your HP pool. After this, I intend, so this is a 13-point commander build. For a 16-point commander build, I intend to take the main battery in AA Specialist. So what this does is that your main battery reload time is reduced by -5%, and your continuous AA damage is buffed by plus 10%. So when we look at the main battery, we went from 1.6 seconds to 1.5 seconds. Our AA defense went from, let's see, without that, you go from 313 to 344. Now, note, I don't have the signal mounted, so we can see what type of change that would have as well. So this is the 16-point commander route I intend to go. For a 20-point commander, I intend to take radio location. What this skill does is that the player will have a direction to the nearest enemy ship indicated to them. But the enemy ship will be alerted that a bearing was taken on their ship, which is like a little located symbol you get like front right center of your screen if someone is radio locating you. This is an attack skill. The reason why I favor in wanting to take this on the Friesland is because your detectability range at tier 9, we're dealing with 6.4 kilometers. There's a lot of other destroyers that have better concealment, like the Shimakaze, like the HMS Kosek. That's a tier 8 destroyer. Shimakaze's tier 10, but let's be realistic, you're going to see both tiers in your matchmaking. You have something like the Yugamo that has good concealment. I think most destroyers at this tier tend to have a roughly 5.8 to 6 kilometer. So when you get lit up and you're being detected, but you don't detect any enemy ship in return, you know that it's an enemy destroyer that's somewhere close to you. Having the radio location skill, you can kind of see this little arc and like your ship's going this direction. So you can see that off to the left, there's an enemy ship nearest to your position. And then you can close the distance in if you want to take on that enemy destroyer. Or like for example, if you're in a smoke screen and you see that the radio location is switched, and previously it was a cruiser and now it's switched to a different direction, and it's, oh, there's a destroyer closing on position. Maybe I should be expecting torpedoes from that direction while you're firing your main guns in a smoke screen, something like that. So it gives you awareness of what's going on. So it is both, I would say, an attack skill, but also at the same time, it is also a defense skill. And how I like to utilize this is I run this on my Shimakaze. It's helped me out a lot. And I think I run it on another ship as well, but I don't recall. So this skill is nice, especially when your kind of goal as the Friesland between your AA, but primarily your main battery and how the ship functions, is that your goal is to take out enemy destroyers. At least that's how I play Friesland in my mind, because once you defeat and take out enemy destroyers on your flank, it helps your team as a whole move up, contest areas, so on and so forth. You can see, so we've spent 20 points. We have 1 point left. I intend to take incoming fire alert as my last point. So this is a warning about a salvo fired at your ship from a distance more than 4.5 kilometers away. Ideally, I would, priority target would be nice, but because we don't have enough points left, I tend to favor incoming fire alert. So it helps keep you aware of when enemies are shooting at you, because these other skills they're not as good for you to take. So this is what I intend to take personally as my 21-point commander on the Friesland. Now, when it comes to other potential options, what could be other builds you could go for? Well, let's discuss that. So I do want to check what our HE fire, chances of causing a fire is 9%. Okay, I was wondering about that. There are some other potential routes you could go. You have the main battery and AA expert. So remember how I was talking about how we could get our firing range from 12.4 to 14.4 kilometers, was that? You could even be more trollish and make your main battery firing range go up even further, adding 20% on it. So adding over 2 kilometers further. So imagine, let's just see what that would be. Because there are some players who actually do this. So if we were at 14 and we add 20%, yeah, you're adding 2.8. Oh, sorry, 14.4 times 14.4 times 0.2, 2.88. So 2.88 plus 14.4, which I believe that's what it was earlier. Your main battery is now 17.28 kilometers. Now, are you actually going to hit anything at that range? Probably not, between the shell travel time and so forth. But you also get, of course, the damage from your AA shell explosions. But let's say, for example, you take the upgrades that I've listed. So then, that means we have a main battery firing range of 12.4. So let's say 12.4 times the 20%. This means we're going to add 2.48 kilometers onto our already 12.4 kilometers. So that means your main battery range is 14.88 kilometers. So then you could do something like this, where you're investing in your guns even more. So that's definitely, it's interesting. It's definitely a build you could go for. Alternatively, you could also do the Fearless Brawler. So you get additional shell explosion in your AA salvos. But what it does is it reduces the main battery reload time after your ship has been detected by the enemy. Now that is a can be activated skill. So this means you have to be detected in order to get that 10% buff off your main battery. So you can see with this build already, it's 1.5 seconds. So if we took 10% off 1.5 seconds, that means you're taking 0.15 seconds off. So that means now you're dealing with 1.3 1.35 seconds with your reload time, or like 1.4, depending on however it gets rounded up when it gets activated. So then you're even really deadly. And then that's kind of where, if you wanted to, an anti-concealment build comes into play on the Friesland. I don't know if I would say Friesland's necessarily the destroyer to go for an anti-concealment build, where if your goal is to activate Fearless Brawler, you're like, oh, then I don't want any concealment. Where you just start, you don't take Concealment Expert, you don't take the Concealment modification. You could, if you want to test it out, by all means. Then that's when you take like Steering Gears modification 2, and then it frees up another 4 points where you're not spending it here. So then it's like, oh, well then I could do this. Don't take Concealment Expert, and then you can take Main Battery AA Expert as an example. And then that would be, of course, we'd polish off minus Concealment Expert. Again, I know of players who do take Fearless Brawler on Friesland, but I'm just not sure how much benefit you can get out of it, because for myself as a Destroyer player, I like to draw in, get close, have that concealment, have the edge, and take out the enemy Destroyers. When you go for an anti-concealment build, it makes it harder for you to close in on the distance and take out enemy Destroyers, utilizing your hydroacoustic search to detect enemy ships out 5 kilometers away, so on and so forth. But if you wanted to do something kind of fun, you could swing that way. But you're giving up the radio location skill, as I've discussed. So just keep that in mind. There's freedom here. I just give like, hey, this is what I'm intending to do for my ship. It doesn't mean that this is the only way to do it. Just that there's other options that you can take, but it'll come at a cost of other things you're not able to take. So let's talk about why I don't take certain other skills. Well, I don't take Grease the Gears. Doesn't make sense to. You already got pretty good traverse speed on your main turrets. Consumable specialist. The only, let's see, the buff you're getting here is your defensive AA fire consumable. So to me, just not worth it. Gunfeeder, your shells already switched incredibly fast. There's no point taking it. We talked about incoming fire alert. Pyrotechnician. I don't necessarily think that Friesland is destroyer to take this. Especially if you do take this skill, you have to give up access points for other skills. I did mention consumables enhancements. This is where I was talking about. So, for example, the action time of the smoke consumable is improved by plus 10%. If you took that third slot upgrade for the smoke, where you go from 30 to 39 seconds, you add this consumable enhancements skill in. Then you go from a 39-second action time on your smoke generator to like a 42.9 second, I think, something like that. You can lay down really incredibly long smokes, and you also get the added benefit of your hydroacoustic search consumable, where you go from, let's say, the 120 seconds that I have it at right now to let's see, that'd be 132 seconds if you took the consumables enhancement. So that's even lasting longer, so 2 minutes and 12 seconds roughly. This isn't a bad skill at all by any means, but it comes to, what are you going to give up in order to get it? Are you going to, would you give up something like main battery A specialist in order to get it? Then you would go maybe priority targets, or you could do extra heavy AP shells. There are also players who do take this on Friesland, because the AP shells, when you get broadside targets, can be pretty nasty on Friesland. So there's a little bit more. Friesland can do a little bit more things here, because we're not sidetracked by torpedoes, because we don't have torpedoes. So there are other possibilities. How much I recommend them over doing something like the skills setup that I've discussed already. I don't know. I don't know if I could give up some of the other skills to go for these skills. Yeah, priority target's nice, but again, what are you giving up in order to get said skill? This could be an option right here. Another build where right now you only get 3 hydroacoustic search, 3 smoke generators, 3 defensive AAs. And you could see from the build I'm doing, I'm not going a superintendent route. But if you were to take superintendent, you get additional consumables, which could be nice towards the in-game play, as an example. And then you could have access to priority target. I know some players, myself, I absolutely love priority target, but I've been learning as a destroyer player to go without it on some of my builds. So this could be something you could do here. If you really wanted to invest in consumables, you could do something like this. So that could be another option you have right there. IFHE, your armor penetration capabilities of your main battery has improved. When we look at the nerf that this skill has and why I don't take it, is that the chances of causing a fire by HE shells without modifiers applied are reduced by half. So you go from not taking any signals into account, you go from 9.9% to 4.5%. In yesterday's video, again, that video will be in the description link of this video, you could see that the IFA, I set like 11 fires. I know it was more, I think it was at least 8, if not maybe 11 fires. I don't remember what it was at the end. I like setting fires in Friesland because your DPM is so good. with that 1.6 second reload. You know, main goal to get it down to 1.5 seconds. When you're being hit with that many shells, you're bound to set things on fire. But if you take this, you're going to lose your fire chance, but your armor capabilities overall, you're doing a little bit more damage. So it just depends. I like setting fires. We talked a little bit about Superintendent. We've talked about main battery and AA expert. I don't see benefit out of getting Swift and Silence for the Friesland. It might make some sense more on something like Shimakaze. Repositioning, you can, yeah, that might make more sense on Shimakaze. But Friesland, you want to be able to invest in your attack. You want to be able to invest in your main battery, in my opinion. We talked about relocation. We talked about Fearless Brawler. Dazzle. I've talked about Dazzle at length in the gearing upgraded commander build video that I did. I personally, when I looked at Little White Mouse's review on this defense skill, when she shared some of the graphics and information, it didn't look like you were getting much of a benefit out of Dazzle. And granted, this only works for the 15 seconds after your ship's been detected, and then it goes away. Yeah, maybe it's harder for enemy to land shells on you, but ideally, if you're playing with your throttle, you're playing with your rudder, it's already like having Dazzle versus just sailing a straight line away from the enemy team. So I'd like to invest in other things when it comes to my Friesland. So I hope this is kind of giving you a good overall view of the Friesland. What I intend to take, this is... if I choose the right ones, this is what I'm intending to take on the Friesland. You know, you could go for something like that. You could go for something like this. You could go for something like this, or this. So there's possibilities here, but you know, I don't invest in consumables in Friesland in my mind because her guns are so good. I want to try to do as much as I can to get investment out of her guns, but at the same time retaining my concealment. So I think that's going to wrap up our time in talking about the Friesland. Again, this is during video update 10.5. She will be no longer available for purchase starting update 0.10.6. So if you want to be able to get her, I do recommend the Friesland. She's a solid destroyer. I myself got her for 1 million free XP. I don't necessarily like spending real life money on the game when it comes to acquiring ships. So I just saved up the 1 million free XP and saved the 70 plus US dollars. But at this point, if you don't have 1 million free XP laying around, then if you want to get her, then my recommendation is to buy her in the armory. I will never necessarily recommend a person spending money to buy a ship in the game, but if it's something you have money lying around and wish to do, then I would say, yeah, Friesland's a solid destroyer. But you have to learn that because she doesn't have torpedoes, battleships, cruisers will bully you. They will push in on you if they know that you don't have torpedoes. Some players just assume all destroyers have torpedoes, but that's not necessarily the case. As with wargaming lately, they will be introducing with the new Dutch line, a copycat of the Friesland. I cannot remember the name or how to pronounce the name of the ship. Starts with a G. So you can get a copy and paste of the Friesland that I think they will be offering for 1 million free XP as well, that I am aware of. That could be inaccurate depending on what Wargaming decides to do. But as far as I know, that is their intention. So if you wanted to wait and just get a copy and paste of the Friesland, just different name of the ship, then you can as well. So with that, we'll draw a conclusion to this video. So if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you want to see more. And if you have already subscribed, I really appreciate it as we continue to grow the community here with you. So until next time, take care.